Okay, back to Zoom. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Sheva Chaya, and this class is an integrating what we're learning with art class. So we're learning some really deep concepts here. I think that we all kind of like felt that in the past 20 minutes, especially. It brings up really some extra deep things to start to open up these, most essential learnings and teachings about reality. I mean, it's touching on like some of the deepest places. And so, we can learn in our minds and we can write down notes and say, okay, I heard what she said and I got it. I got it. But like getting it deep, it's like Yael said, like it takes hitbonenut, it takes another kind of work. And so what we're doing a lot with this class, God willing, is to do some of that integrating with doing some art and really tying it into what we're learning. Making the art not only like art for art's sake, that I can make something beautiful or a point or whatever it might be, but really a processing for us, and also a process of just really actually being able to contemplate these things that we've learned in a way where we can maybe relate to them more, maybe understand them better, maybe even be able to share them with people in our lives, whatever it might be. So that's the idea of our group here. And I like to tie it, especially now that we're in Breshit, so I'm tying it into the Parsha every week because it's Breshit, it's like a great opportunity. So I'm going to do that again. And this Parsha, again, is like a, famous, unforgettable, amazing Parsha, right? Vayetze, where Yaakov is on the run and he has the dream with the ladder and he struggles with the angel. Yeah, we have some artwork here. We're gonna get to doing some new. You can pass it around. Oh shoot, Hannah's there. Yeah. Okay, let's let her in. Okay. See that? Great. Amazing. Yeah, she showed me before. Beautiful. Hi, Hannah Sarah. Can you hear me? You're good? Okay, I hope you can hear me. Let me know if there's an issue.
I can hear you. I couldn't make it today.
Welcome. So we were running late. We just started. Sorry if you had to wait there for a second, but we're just getting started. And I'm introducing now what we're going to do today connected to our Parsha. And maybe sometimes things seem really obvious, but maybe sometimes those are the things that we actually need to contemplate the most. These things that we think like, oh yeah, I know the story. I learned that in Kita Aleph. Everybody knows the story. But to contemplate and go a bit deeper with it. So this is our work here. So we're going to start with some of the teachings from Rav Adin Steinsaltz, again, Alav Shalom, beautiful teachings. And I'm going to jump around in what he taught here about this week's Parsha, and then we'll get to the next phase. So as we know, in this Parsha, Yaakov is suddenly out of the house, right? He's grown up in this house. He's 60 something years old. He's used to a relatively set up life. He has his father is a spiritual leader. He's wealthy. This is what he's used to. And suddenly he's on the run and he gets mugged along the way and he has nothing. So it's a big change, a big shift. So we'll start here with this teaching. The outside world. At the beginning of the Parsha, Jacob uproots himself and goes to Haran. All in all, even though his brother is not especially nice to him, Jacob lives in a place that's as good as it possibly could be. Up to this point, he lived at home. His father is the outstanding spiritual personality of the generation and respected and wealthy man. Presumably, Jacob has everything that he needs. Nevertheless, he leaves everything and departs for another country. We can safely assume that once he leaves, Jacob is immediately struck by the acute sense that the outside world is different from his former home. Home was full of holiness and all sorts of good things, whereas the world outside is bleak and spiritually barren. One of the things Jacob must learn to do upon recognizing this contrast is to make a new accounting of the world in which he lives. He now must struggle to maintain his inner spirituality. He could not have learned this lesson had he remained in the spiritual comfort of his home or in the academy of Shem Ve'ever. The house of study is warm and pleasant. It's an insulated place full of good Jews who are engaging in Torah and piety. Jacob ventures outside and sees that in the outside world, things are not as they were in his old world. He must struggle to survive in a world where there are pitfalls, a world where he cannot continue with his old mode of life because he must live with the smarmy Laban and his pagan household. I've never read that word before. The question that arises here is how a person reacts when he leaves his comfort zone, his own small world, and is faced with a harsh new reality. Ultimately, every Jew faces this problem, whether he's traveling to Haran or a different place. Often the first meeting with the outside world is a profound shock. When one sits in the house of study, one comes in contact primarily with other people therein. When one inevitably leaves its halls, one begins to meet people from the outside world who may be quite different from one's former friends. A person can go for years. Okay, I'm gonna actually skip this part. So what happens is when he comes to Haran and he meets Lavan, it's not just that he meets this smarmy trick man, right? That he's like looking to get whatever he can out of him, but he's related to him, right? It's his uncle. So what do you do with that, right? You go to the outside world. It consists not only of heathens who are unrelated to him, but rather Jacob's own blood. Lavan is not a distant person from another world. He's Jacob's uncle. Yet it turns out that despite this, they did not belong to the same world at all. Indeed, they have nothing in common with each other. These people are technically Jacob's family, but in actuality, they're distant and foreign. How can Jacob deal with this traumatic moment of crisis and contradiction? This is Jacob's essential struggle, which at times on the most basic level is a struggle for spiritual survival. And we're all familiar with this, that we are Jacob, like we're the children, right? So we're all familiar with this in our own very personal ways. And now we're moving into this phase of shifting Jacob to Yisrael, right? Jacob to Israel. This change of name is a state change, as we know. Says Reb Steinsaltz, all things considered, Jacob's relationship with Lavan posed a great danger to him. To live with Lavan for 20 years is not a simple matter. On the other hand, Jacob had much to benefit from a relationship, as it states, with only my staff I crossed the Jordan, and now I've become two camps. From this world, Jacob extracts something of major importance. He enters as Jacob, a single individual, and returns as Yisrael, a leader of an impressive tribe. The difference is not just the numerical increase of the family and camp. The Jacob who leaves Beersheba is a man who is incapable of engaging in struggle. When faced with an obstacle, he tries to circumvent it rather than approaching it head on. Even his name, Yaakov, from the Hebrew word akov, meaning crooked or twisted, attests to his propensity to avoid any confrontation. When Esau enters Isaac's tent, Jacob exits through the other door. That's simply how he conducts himself. When Esau threatens him, Jacob's feet are already in Haran. While Jacob is Jacob, as Jacob may be able to live comfortably in the bubble of his father's household, he cannot survive in the reality of the outside world. And he certainly cannot become a leader as the basis for a nation. He can only be an individual, a tzaddik to be sure, but an individual nonetheless. Only after Jacob encounters the angel, for you have struggled with a divine being and have prevailed, can he survive going into the leader he was destined to be. Without passing this test, Jacob cannot become Israel. Only when he resolves not to flee from his problems, but to stand up and face them, can he cease being Yaakov, the individual, and return home as Yisrael, as Israel. This is the beginning of a nation, the beginning of our enduring existence. So I'm going to stop at this point for a second, just to tie it into this learning that we're doing with the introduction to the Zohar Kodesh with the Vashlag, is awakening us to this fact, this struggle of Matzav Bet that we were talking about in the previous class. It's something that this is what we live in. It's something that we can't skip, right, as we caught today. And so we have to deal with it, like very similarly to what the situation that Yaakov had to suddenly deal with, the struggle of life, the challenges of life. And what it says here, what the Rav is bringing here, which is, in my mind, one of the keys, it's like, what is the answer to getting to in order to receive, in order to lashpia, in order to give, is to love another, to get outside of yourself. So in this case, Yaakov was self-centered, a tzaddik, like not in a negative way, just in his own world, a tzaddik up to this point, and then suddenly he's thrust out into the world, and he not only has to struggle to keep his own spiritual state, but this allows him to grow into a leader of a nation. He can be connected to the all. He has to be. He becomes Yisrael, which is us, which is all of us. So in a sense, we are all Yaakov, and we all need to become Yisrael. Okay, so that's like an underlying idea here. I'm jumping. Parshat Vayetze is not just the weekly Torah portion, and the problems that arise are not only Jacob's alone. This is the parsha of our era, of our age. When we move on to the next parsha, the story of Jacob's struggle will still linger with us. This is the parsha in which we have been living during the past few generations, in the sense that we've suddenly been thrust into the world around us, forced to deal with the ramifications of this new interaction. And the question is, what does present day Jacob do when he faces this struggle? Okay, so this is us. So there's so much here. I want us to have time to do the art, so we're a little crunched with time, so I'm going to keep moving forward. And there's this really, really beautiful idea connected to this famous story of the parsha of the ladder, right? Everybody knows the story, right? We all know the story. Jacob falls asleep. He has a dream. The ladder, the angels going up and down the ladder. Basic background of the story. So listen to this. He says, in its commentary on Yaakov's dream, the following midrash disputes whether the verse "and angels of God were ascending and descending on it," as describing angels going up and down on the ladder, or Jacob himself. Maybe you've heard this before, but it's really awesome. So this is the midrash. According to the interpretation that they were ascending and descending on Jacob, the meaning is that they were exalting him, but also degrading him, surrounding him, leaping upon him, and maligning him. For it says, "Israel, in whom I will be glorified." Said the angels, "Are you the one whose image is engraved on high?" They ascended on high and saw his ideal image, and they descended down below and found him sleeping. So that's from Breshit Rabbah. So now we're going back to the commentary. The angels stand beside Jacob, leap on him, pinch him, abuse him, asking, "Is this you, Jacob, whose image is found upon heaven? And here you are sleeping? Is this what you do down here in this world?" The angels ascend and descend, and Jacob turns over onto the other side and continues sleeping. If his image were not under the throne of glory, if angels of God were not ascending and descending on Jacob, then it would be perfectly acceptable for Jacob to sleep. After all, Paro slept, Nebuchadnezzar slept. Let Jacob sleep peacefully as well. But Jacob cannot sleep peacefully because angels of God are ascending and descending on him. He himself is the ladder that bridges the chasm between heaven and earth, on which all of existence ascends and descends. Let us take this problem and apply it to the individual. A person sets out on a journey. After progressing for a while, he decides to rest for a bit. Suddenly he has a vision. He sees a path connecting the upper worlds and the lower worlds passing through him. This is the path that passed through Jacob, and the path that passes through everyone who travels on the journey of life, no matter who he may be. This is the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. And this is the transition point. And at that transition point stands Jacob. This Jacob, no matter who and where he may be, must remember that his obligation reaches to the sky because his image is engraved on high. It could be that as far as one is concerned, it suffices that his image appears on his driver's license and passport. But the reality is that his image is engraved under the throne of glory. As a result, there is more that is demanded of him. There's a higher standard. The top of the ladder reaches all the way to God. And because of this, no person can pass off as insignificant. When Jacob understands this, he begins the process that creates Israel. Jacob does not just represent the Jewish people. He also represents a man who leaves home and must now find his way in the world. And this Jacob must recognize the pinnacle of existence, the uppermost limit that he must touch. Seeing oneself as the center of the world is precisely what puts one's obligation on the highest possible level. Interesting, right? So we have, it's very subtle. This whole thing with the Ratzon is like we so need to connect to our Ratzon and not cross that very fine line of being totally self-centered. But we have to do it, like we said before, you have to want. In order to actually go through this whole process, the desire has to be really strong. It has to be alive and awake and be connected to it. And then there's that fine line, like, is it for me or is it for the greater good, right? That slight little change, biggest change in the world. Okay, so it's all beautiful, but let's give ourselves enough time to do our project today. So let's, that's the introduction, okay? Little food for thought. Let's take out our painting equipment. Everyone who has take out. I also brought extra.
I need everything.
Okay.
This is for Gila.
Here's some paint,
Anyone else need paper?
and there's little waters on the table.
This is for Gila.
Thank you. Okay. And there's paints, there's brushes. Just make sure you pass them back after, so I'll have them for next week. Here's a few brushes. Gonna pass these down. Got it. Yo. Okay, yeah, Elle, I'm putting brushes here for you also, and paint as well. Okay, so I'm also passing out. We get a special treat today. If I have to cut these, everyone take a circle and pass it around. I'll give you one here, yeah, Elle.
And those who don't?
Yeah, just take one and pass it around.
I bought paper, but it's shiny. Is that gonna make a difference?
It's like normal paper, not watercolor paper. Let's give you a piece of watercolor paper. Yeah, yeah. Do you have an extra piece of that? Amazing. So, okay, so I said in the beginning of this class, this is not an art class, even though we're doing art, because I don't want us to overly focus on technique. We could totally do that, and we don't need to. There's plenty of art classes. You can check out many options around the world. What we are doing here is this integration process, but I'm also going to throw in a few techniques here and there, because why not? It's part of it's fun, and we can also learn more about what we're able to do here. Are there any circles left? Did they go all the way around? Yeah, take one and pass them around. There were, yeah, there should be, okay, if there's not enough, then I will cut a couple more. Everyone needs a circle. Okay. Round and round. Does anyone have an extra? Yo, amazing. Okay, so you have one? You need one? We're good? Everyone has a circle? Great. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do today. So there's a technique in watercolor painting that's it's called like blocking or something. It's basically you can block off part of your page before you paint, and then there's different ways of lifting it, and then afterwards you have your clean page underneath and the painting all around. It's a super cool technique that you can really, there's actual material you can get at the store that it's block. Yeah, it's like masking, and it peels off after. So I cut us little circles. We're not going to get too complicated with the process. Put your circle at the top of your page. Maybe a little, like if this is your page, so here, right? Like at the top of the page, maybe even a little bit off the top of the page. Okay. And I didn't give you all tape or anything, but keep it there. Okay.
You have to be there.
Yeah. This
Anywhere,
we're
doing the top, right?
yeah, you can choose a place on the top. You don't have to, yeah. Like I said also in the beginning, I don't like telling people what to do, but I have to tell you what to do a little bit. Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go on this theme of this ladder. The ladder being in this, from what we're understanding from the Midrash, super interestingly, not only a ladder of angels going up and down, of connecting Yaakov to the upper worlds, but on him, that he's the ladder. Interesting, and that's us. So what might that mean? Part of what we're gonna do right now is just paint a ladder from below to above, whatever you like, be creative, go for it. And but keep that circle on the top. Don't paint this inside the circle. Let that circle cover that part and paint. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So you can do it. So one of the techniques that we've been working with is wetting the page with just clean water, no color at first, and then painting. You can for sure do that. Don't go overboard with the water, because we want enough time to actually be able to paint the ladder and it not like fade out into the background. So everyone understands that technique. You get the page wet, let the colors flow, and they'll cover the back nicely. Need some colors? Yeah, there's paper towel and tissue here as well. Here's a few brushes. Okay. tissues as well. Okay, so
So
get a
yes
good.
background, no background, whatever you want.
Yeah, you can do a bit, but don't get it so wet that we're stuck in it being wet for too long. Okay, I mean it's as long as you get the image of the ladder on there, you're good. That's the main goal right now, the ladder. And while you're painting it, contemplating this place, which is so explained so beautifully by Rav Steinsaltz, that really. What were if it is that the angels are going up and down on the person, on us, so the angels, when they go on high and they see, like all of us, we're taken from just below the throne of glory when we were created, our image on high, that ideal us, maybe you could say it's Matzav Gimel, I'm not sure, it's super high level, and then they come back down and they see the same reflection of the same person, and the person's asleep. And they're like, what is going on here? That's what the angel is coming to say to the person. What, you're sleeping? And then going back up to check. Oh, it's this incredible supernal high level connection situation. They go back down. What, you sleep in this world? Right. So this is the dynamic that we're working with here. And I'll put on some musical accompaniment. So.
Does it like matter how many lungs you have?
No,
Do we need to have a certain?
as long as you have some feeling of a ladder, and this idea of the up and down, that's the basic starting point.
I just like timing, with a 5 minute thing, like
Yeah, 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah, something like that.
It's also that is flux.
It's okay.
No problem.
This is Shlomo. Very ready. In your house? Like here at the table? Oh, sorry about that.
Can I go through my food?
Say what?
I kind of like went through the circle here with the single spot.
You can, it's okay. You can paint over the circle. The point of the circle is that it helps block that spot. So you can paint right over it. And if it moves a little, it's not the end of the world. We're not getting graded. We're experiencing.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a good grade no matter what because you showed up.
I'm not going to get a grade. I'm one of those students. I like to be students.
Well, you came to the right place. One more song.
משורר התשובה הנולדת כבר, ואם בשחקים עודנה צרורה, שמה נשמתך בצרור החיים. משורר התשובה הנולדת כבר, ואם בשחקים עודנה צבורה, שמה נשמתך בצרור החיים.
It's kind of it and Shlomo. It's
Before it was.
it's
A whole bunch of them singing.
but they're
the same
together.
song.
So this is kind of it now. It was Shlomo.
Is the ladder supposed to be going to this circle?
It doesn't have to, but Most likely would, and most people, but it doesn't happen. The idea of the ladder is that it's up and down. That's like there's like the up, like the holy, under Kisei Kavod version, and there's the down, sleepy mode.
Here's what I feel like.
You're doing great.
Pulling cars.
Yeah. All good. Okay, we're coming to the last moments here. We're gonna take things to the next level. Little forewarning.
I don't know the water yet.
This is called Mishorer HaTshuva. Yeah, it's for Rav Kook, this one. It's about Okay, so get in your last brush strokes. I know it's hard to stop. I'm so happy when everyone gets so inspired and just can't stop painting. So I bless you all to take that with you and do more painting when we're not in a time-constricted class situation. But we're gonna take a break. And today we're actually gonna, as we take a break, as usual, we're gonna not put any more paint on the page for a few moments, let it dry. And today we're actually going to take a moment to settle in deeper and do a little short meditation in between this phase and the next phase. So you can find yourself sitting comfortably on your chair, feet on the ground, feel yourself sitting in the chair. And even if it's hard to stop, make yourself stop now. It's worth it. We're gonna do it for the experience sake, and we can always paint again later. Okay, so and take a deep breath, and as we settle in, as we know, the world, Baruch Hashem, is filling with mindfulness. Everybody knows about breathing and yoga and consciousness, so let's do it as well. Let's settle in and taking a deep breath and letting the whole breath all the way out till there's no more air, until it's all the way out. Releasing it all. And then taking in a breath and holding it 2, 3, 4, 5, and releasing for longer. Slowly release as if you're blowing through a little straw. Release as slowly as you can until the air is all the way out. If it helps, you can count an internal counting, or you can just let it go slowly. And again, another cycle. Once the air is all released out, to breathe in fresh new air and hold it for at least 4 or 5 seconds before releasing slowly until it's all out. And another round at your own pace. Great. And as we're settling in, you can allow yourself to breathe normally. When we breathe consciously and slow down our breathing, our thoughts also slow down. And then we're allowed to enter a more contemplative state, this very important stage and step of Hitbonenut, if we're going to go to the side of choosing the path of Torah mitzvot. It's not just about a checklist and getting through mitzvah after mitzvah and learning after learning, but it's a matter of going deeper with it, contemplating it. What does this mean to me? What does this mean to my relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with the world? What am I bringing to the world by doing this? What do I hope for the world? And let's contemplate for a moment, just going inside, as we know our goal in this world is to create a dwelling place for Kodesh Baruch Hu in the world, a home in the world. And since the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there's no physical home in the world, but here we are sitting in Yerushalayim, Ir Kodesh, learning Torah. And we know from our sages that the Mishkan, until it's rebuilt, the holy home for Hashem in the world, it's inside of us. It's in our hearts. And I'm guessing it'll always be in our hearts. And so we could imagine inside of our hearts this place, Hamakom, a place of dwelling, a place where that light, that neshama part of ourselves, that completely connected, untainted, can't be messed with part of ourselves, that's totally connected, no matter what. In that place, there is a light. There's the Ner Tamid, just like there was in the Beit HaMikdash, a light that is lit on the menorah, the furthest to the west light that never went out. And if it's called a Ner Tamid, so it's Tamid, it's forever. And so when that light was lit from the beginning, it's still lit. Wherever that menorah is, actually in the physical world, it's for sure lit. And inside of our hearts, if we look inside and we allow ourselves to slow down our thoughts and look inside, it's lit inside of us as well. And we could even see it. And maybe if we see a little light inside, maybe we could encourage it to grow and become a bigger light, become more revealed to us, more accessible to us. Maybe we could even touch it in some way, blink it into our inner eye, recognize that it's inside of us, recognize that it is us. And recognizing and reconnecting to this place, that this challenge that Yaakov went through from transferring over from Yaakov to Yisrael, needing to survive the outside world, needing to survive all of the challenges that this world brings, and remembering that light inside, remembering the strength of the spiritual house that he grew up in. And even though the outside world might not always or ever reflect that, to bring it to that world, to know that it's there anyway, to bring that presence with a consciousness. And this is something that not only Yaakov Avinu could do, but this is for all of us to do. And by doing that, even a moment of recognizing this is presence. This is Hashem's presence. Here in this room, all of us together, in Yerushalayim, Yer Kodesh, each of us individually, all of us together. Let's just breathe in that light for a second. And I'm going to share with you a teaching. And keep your eyes closed if you can for another little moment. And this is a teaching from Reb Shlomo Carlebach called The Land of Life. He says, you know, my sweetest friends, there's a tree of life, and there's a land of life, which is even deeper. The tree of life is only a tree, but the land of life is something else. Israel is called Eretz HaChaim, the land of life. I want you to know the deepest depths there is. What is a sign of life? A sign of life is to grow and to expand. Do you know when Israel became the land of life? When it was given to Yaakov. Now listen to this. We learn in Parshat Vayetze, our Parsha, that Yaakov Avinu passed Yerushalayim when he was fleeing from Esav. He crossed the border. He was already outside of Israel. But as soon as he was outside of the Holy Land, he said to himself, how could I have passed Yerushalayim without praying? The sun went down and he prayed and then he fell asleep. The Gemara says in Chulin that at that exact moment, Yerushalayim came to Yaakov. At that exact moment, the Beis HaMikdash and the holy altar came to Yaakov. Can you imagine how much Yerushalayim expanded that it mamish came to Yaakov? So this is what it's all about. Abraham and Yitzhak were on the level that the Holy Land was given to them. But Yaakov was something else. Wherever Yaakov was, the Holy Land was there also. Yaakov could take Yerushalayim in his hands and move it to his place, even outside of Eretz Yisrael. You see what it is. The tree of life is very beautiful, but it only stands where it's physically located. The land of life can reach the whole world. The Midrash says, Asida Eretz Yisrael shetispashet b'kol haratzos. from the sea face. Someday Israel will expand all over the world. Not the tree of knowledge and not the tree of life, but the land of life. The whole world will be as holy as Israel. And this is the level of Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so we can. The whole world will reach the level of the land of life. Okay, so let it be soon. And we can, if your eyes aren't already open, so we can blink our eyes open and come back to our project here. And as you, I'm sure could guess, now we're going to remove our little circle, right? And we have a space in our picture. We have a space in this. We have a space that wasn't painted. Yeah, cleaning the water is really a key technique in watercolor painting. It's a very important thing. Clean water. Yes. Thanks. Thanks so much. Okay, so when we get back with our clean water, we'll take the next step. No, I was waiting for you guys to come back with the water. Yeah, I don't want anyone to miss it. So. Okay. Oh, thanks so much. Okay, so now we're all here, and we're gonna take a moment. We're gonna take about 5 minutes now, Bezrat Hashem, to imagine, so that you can go with it where you want to go with it. But this idea of the meditation is to, if we have this ladder that's taking us from here to there and recognizing who we really are, what our challenges are, where are we asleep. So we're in our meditation. I hope that we touched at least a little bit on that place of where we're awake, where we're here, right? We showed up not only to this class, but to Eretz Yisrael. And as we read from Reb Shlomo, this is a level of, it's not even just a place. It touches all places with consciousness, right? So we have this opportunity to paint in our little special window circle that we saved for ourselves, something reflecting that. Okay, I'm not going to feed you something specific because everyone has their own creative inspiration, and I'm sure you can come up with something. But this circle is to represent that place where it's just so clear, no matter, even if we're asleep, we're awake, right? Even if we're in that place that we again, life, we get challenged again and again and again, and yet we can remember in the middle of it that we are godly. We have a divine essence. We have a divine connection it can't be cut off. It's forever. That light is shining forever. So that's what to paint in the window. Something there, anything you want. It could just be a color. You could go abstract.
It's a feeling. It's what I don't know. This doesn't get it. Like something that is part of us or something we aim.
It's. I mean, ideally, it's something that you could feel that you already touched on inside of yourself. That you recognize that it's there, and
From the positive.
From the positive,
From the sequence side.
from the side of the awakened side of ourselves. It could be a symbol that means something, a letter, a word, a color, a design. Okay, we got a song for this. Paintbrush?
Yeah, let's give it.
Okay. So just because of time constraints, we're gonna pull it together. Would anyone like to hold up, share their picture? Anyone, everyone, share what they made or anything about it? You don't have to, yeah?
Well,
Okay.
my eyes are open
Wow, beautiful. Wow, wow.
Your ladder even looks like an arm with
Yeah, it looks amazing. Here,
looks
hold
like
hold that
filling on
up.
the arm. too.
And I always wanted blue eyes.
Blue eyes. It's a benefit of painting. You can choose some of the details. Anybody else want to share? Or in your reflections on the experience also, yeah, great.
Okay, so is mine, and I thought about the steps being like what you spoke about, how like even if we do a small step, so it's like there's really great strength to it. So I put like the bottom, like I gave space like for development, but so I made gems inside which are steps, so that it should be like we're doing something. Like the gem is our step. We're doing something really great. So the step at the beginning became like the gem.
Right.
And then I love to learn and always love to learn. So I put my connection to it and striving for more to connect. And strength is with like, c'est bien.
Growing. It's good.
Yeah.
Kind of, growth,
Growing.
learning, growth through.
Thank you. Beautiful. Wow. Really, really nice. Can you hold it up again like you did your picture? Really nice. Wait, I want to see your face also.
Thank you for the opportunity.
For
Like,
sure.
it's like, wow, we have Katie, like I have this.
It's important work.
To yourself this space. Maybe I teach, but we do great. So this is like, wow, so you're giving me a thoughtful learning this after with the people. Like the idea of this ladder is like you could do something from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do what? Like the ladder, the growth, like you can take it to so many places, and this idea that we can allow ourselves to this ladder.
Well, beautiful.
Wow. Okay. Hold on. Picture.
What are the dots in the circle? What if you do?
So when I think of like this self that is reflected in Kisei Kavod, the image that sort of comes to me is this idea of, and this may sound silly, I don't know, but like a kaleidoscope almost. This, within us there are so many gems, there are so much goodness within our souls, within ourselves. And just like a kaleidoscope, there's so many ways that it could shift and become into this high, like, and because of the light that's reflected within it, we become something that's even more wondrous, that we're reflecting back. So I sort of just painted these gems within this space that we're reaching towards, we're trying to get to.
Let's say your husband's a lucky guy.
I'd like to meet him.
Yeah.
I'd like to meet too. I'll share mine. It's just simple. I just took this simplistic approach. That's what came to me. Make it as uncomplicated as possible.
Wow.
And reach the shining light within.
Yeah, it's really nice. You're that theme. It's like your one that I did you rip up.
Yeah,
That reminds me of the one.
It's the same, it's coming up.
It's cool.